What's up, everyone? Welcome in. The preseason is behind us. The regular season is coming. I've spread some sage all over the place, and let's talk Celtics basketball with Brian, Rob, Evan Valenti. I am Adam Kaufman. Thank you. Welcome in. Happy early holidays, and hopefully you're enjoying a nice restful break before the new year comes around, obviously. How you fellas doing?
Hanging in.
Excited for some regular season basketball here.
Yeah, just a few days away, of course, today, as I mentioned, Sunday. Who knows when you're listening to it? Maybe it's even later in the week than that at this point. But the games begin on Wednesday. The Celtics' first action after an 0-2 preseason that, let's be honest, we know how preseason works, regardless of the sport or team you root for. Wins, losses, those don't matter. It's flow of the game and indications of how individuals do and trends and things like that you try and decipher and that actually matter. And in this particular case, it's hard, B-Rob, to get a gauge on this team right now. Evan and I were talking about this off air, and it's nothing you haven't thought about, obviously. Just the fact that, hey, Kemba Walker, he's hurt. He's not going to be ready for the start of the regular season either, but he didn't play in either of these preseason games. Neither Tristan Thompson, who was their big free agent acquisition. Romeo Langford is sidelined. That's a guy that down the road could be part of the rotation as well. So it's hard to really examine where they're at with the regular season coming up.
No question. And on top of all that, you have a super condensed training camp. Mm-hmm. So that leaves you just 2 preseason games to work with footage. And that opens up. So you don't, and then with like guy like Tristan Thompson now, you don't see the combinations you'd want to see heading into the regular season. So factor that in with obviously the team's core had a very long run during last year's season. So they are in a very quick turnaround. And from an energy standpoint in the preseason, they clearly weren't there yet. So how do you evaluate that? How much credit do you give those guys being like, okay, they're going to obviously turn it on when they need to turn it on versus, Gordon Hayward's gone, Kemba Walker's gone. Like the shots are going to be, the easy looks are not going to be as easy to come by this year. So balancing all that into play, like you guys said, like it's really tough to get a great read on where this team is at. But there's no mistake. Like they weren't in. Brad Stevens isn't happy after the preseason, and it's hard to blame him.
Is there something that you've watched so far that you have seen that you can make some heads or tails out of that worries you? Just that one big concern going into the season that goes beyond injury.
Yeah, I mean, I think a clear one is what happens when Jason Tatum's on the bench to the offense, because last year, the Tatum plus bench unit was very successful, and that meant when that happened, you could pile up 3 starters together, Smart, Brown. I mean, Smart was coming off the bench half the time, but Smart, Brown, Hayward, Kemba, and then that would be obviously a pretty good unit too. Now 2 of those guys are not around for the start of the season, and Kemba and Hayward, obviously. So the Smart, Jaylen Brown, and other guy minutes have not gone great, and they're not going to go great if those guys aren't hitting shots. So I think that is going to be an issue this year, and you have to, I think, the coaching staff is going to be doing plenty of mixing and matching to see who can kind of fit around those guys and make those minutes where the team can hold its own for the 12 or 15 minutes a game that Tatum's on the bench. But it's those are going to be critical because I think, you don't take anything out of a preseason game, but I think the plus minus splits in those 2 preseason games with Tatum on and off the bench were not good.
Yeah, I think Tatum was like, Grandy had it. So if you want to fact check me, go ahead. But Tatum on the floor was the only reason why the Celtics were plus anything in any of the 2 preseason games. So to echo your sentiment here, B-Rob, it's not pretty when Tatum goes to the bench and you look around at this team and, with no Kemba, where does the relief come? Is it going to be a Jeff Teague? And Teague I thought was pretty great. And Adam, our last show was all over the Teague acquisition. He's actually been all over ever since that was official, quote unquote. But if you're relying on Jeff Teague and maybe a little Peyton Pritchard here and there and Marcus Smart to get hot at some point, like there's a little bit of a concern in terms of what you can produce off the bench, when your star player goes out. And for me, Brian, you got to look to Jaylen Brown and say, hey, like this is your time here. Like this is a time where you need to be aggressive and to hunt your shots and get to the places on the floor where you think you're the most comfortable. And this is, I think, an area in which, for Brown, it's a little uncharted waters here, Brian. If I'm I'm a little concerned about, although Brown's been able to be one of the more consistent players for the past couple of years. This is a point where Jaylen Brown being the offensive focal point is going to be needed here.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Just the margin of error is down for him this year, and that can be. It's good. He's going to get more opportunity, which he has shown he deserves based on how he's performed, especially in the postseason last year. But at the same time, like, defenses are going to be keying in on him more, and he's not going to have Hayward or Kemba setting him up as much. So that's going to make life tougher for him. And so I know there's areas of his game he needs to, or he said he wants to work on this offseason including becoming a better distributor himself. Because I think you look at his assist rate, it is not good in his career. That's probably his weakest spot in the offensive end. So there's a lot of room for growth there. If they want to, they threw him in the pick and roll and have him handling the ball more, and he's gotten a lot better there, but he still has a long way to go on that front. So that's definitely, I agree with it, and that's a huge area to watch so far. And it's gonna, it's not gonna make or break the team, but it's gonna certainly make or break how the team does on certain nights.
Boy, there was some obsession going on social media watching those games, though, with Jaylen Brown's passing, as if he had just, turned some ridiculous corner
there was
a few months ago playing in the bubble to where he's at now.
It was just that one pass, the one dump off pass to Rob Williams. It was one pass. That was it. And the whole internet went nuts. It's like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, we never saw Jaylen do that ever before, but like, he's going to have to do a lot more of that if they're going to be really successful.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, you need to, doing things once in a preseason game, great, but doing it again and doing it without turning the ball over on the two other possessions, you're running the pick and roll. That's what's going to be the key here. So, I mean, they're gonna have to find that out. It might be a situation where he's just not ready for that. And, you can feature him in plenty of other ways. Obviously, he's very valuable off the ball and, driving to the hoop, but you also have to be careful just not to ask too much out of him too, because that's when you get some, too much ISO and then some ugly shooting nights.